So it doesn't. Nice to know.
Is your sign that's something else?
They put up signs all over the place. And he said 2 months ago, I asked the nurse that it makes. And that's what they said. Forewarned, they're going to disappear. And you can only. It's terrible. Yeah.
So this is Lilu Nishmat David Eliezer ben Reb Moshe.
Yeah, if we could, amen. If we could learn.
What is it? A grape juice?
Grape juice.
Baruch
Yes,
Tamech
organic.
Elam Borei Pri Hagofen.
Amen. But I'm organic grape juice.
Amen, amen, amen.
Okay, so this week we have new presents.
After I buffed them. All right.
So this is the partzuf, the chart.
New presents. Wow.
This is what we
Oh, sorry.
last week I did in orally without anything
Yes.
written. So now you have it translated
So you
into.
translated it, everybody.
And there's a lot to learn just from this thing itself.
I asked Abraham, by the way. He says no. There's no notes. He says
No, I talked to him.
You did?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Oh, but he told me that he.
So that was before we continued talking. Okay.
I just would like to dedicate the shiur to the first one of my grandson,
What's his name?
Asher Menachem Moshe ben Meir Leah.
Asher Menachem Moshe ben
Meir
Meir Leah.
Every day I don't know what's going to happen.
Is he back in the hospital?
I don't know. I can't reach them. I just know that on Friday, the whole glass door of the shower fell on him, and I wasn't there, but
And you don't know why.
I don't know why, but it crashed into a million pieces on him. There's something going on here that I don't beyond me right now.
Here's to you too.
To ask my husband, and maybe he can put it on his pen, but I don't know how these things work.
What? Is this for you? I don't know, really?
Okay, so let's continue with love, and then hopefully
Salt.
what we learn will affect
What we learn
the
was-
world and affect especially those close to us. Especially through our actions, as the Rebbe would say, that it's not just the learning.
Hard love, you don't have to be alone, and it's really whatever we can do in this marriage.
Okay, so what we saw last time about love, so we went through the chart, and there's a lot more to learn about the chart. Maybe we'll pick things up as we go along. But we ended with the two major characteristics of love that is likened to water. Because normally the love that we talk about is the love that is likened to water, but there's also love that's likened to fire. Okay, so you have to know that there's also avaka ish. And that's what's discussed also in Shir HaShirim. That Reshafea Rishvei Yesh, it's called. That it's flame, not exactly it's flame, but the sparks that come out of it are like fire. So there's also love that's like fire. So it's not that love is always water, but here we're talking about love that grows, that makes everything grow, that makes everything develop and go from its potential to its actual final state. So he said that, let's read again the paragraph that we started. Man was created in the image of God. This is the second paragraph. Was commanded to imitate God. Just as God is merciful, so too should you be merciful. The creation of the world, so that's just to say, don't mix up the merciful. It shouldn't be there. It's just a source. How do we know that man should be like God? Because there's a mitzvah. V'alachta bidrachav, you should walk in his ways. And then the Gemara continues, just as he is merciful, so you should be merciful. But that's not connected to here. That's just how the Gemara continues. What is connected to here is that the creation of the world, something from nothing, through the impetus of love, teaches us the secret of bringing hidden potential to fruition. That the way that Hashem created the world, He created it with love. So in the same way that everything that we want to create, also it reaches its full potential with love. So but you have to understand that love is on the right axis. It's the middle sphira on the right? Because it's the pnimius, it's the experience of chesed. Above love is chokhmah, and underneath love is netzach. So basically, if you want to go from an initial point, chokhmah is like a point, and you want to go to something that's eternal, that has eternal, it can stand eternally, you have to give it a lot of love. There's a lot of poems that are written about this. That a lot of poetry deals with love. Like we said, most of what mankind deals with in the end, in the terms of emotions, is love. Love conquers all. All these various aphorisms that are meant to show that in the end it all goes back to love. But you have to remember that in the Western world, a lot of this is because of Christianity. Because that's what they call themselves, the religion of love. So it's not so simple that what they mean is the love that we mean here. They mean something a little bit different. I don't want to get into it right now, but we might encounter it later. What we mean by love is what brings about Hashem's plan of creation, what Hashem planned in creation, that He wants it to come about. But it leads in the end to creation that can stand by itself. It has its own, it has trust in itself, as it were. Okay? What Christianity leads to is creation that can only stand as shafut. It can only stand by virtue of something else. It can't stand by itself. That's a very important distinction. It's like what they call today dependency.
Codependent?
It's like not exactly codependence. It's just dependency. In Christianity, in the end, the goal is to make you dependent. They want addiction. They just want you to be addicted to something.
We are not dependent on Hashem.
No, Hashem wants you to be italech lefanai, walk before me. So for a lot of people it is. If you're talking about Christianity, that's what it looks like. But in Yiddishkeit, the point is, Ani amarti Elokim atem. I wanted you to be like me, like Hashem. That's what Hashem says. That's the ultimate goal. So what needs to come out is that you and I are the same. To bring that out, then you merit eternal life and so on. Okay. A very big difference. Not interested in addictions. Even not to Hashem. It can be a craving, but not an addiction.
Oh gosh.
Okay? You can crave Hashem, but don't be addicted. Hashem doesn't want you to be addicted to Him. So what does He want? He wants you to be like Him. It's not the same thing. Dependency means that there's always something that you need. If you don't get it, you're lost. That's how Christianity works. So why is that? Because it's stuck on the love. The whole love is weird there. But for us, love is the spirit behind reaching eternity, reaching netzach. So from chokhmah, from a point, we go down to netzach, to something that's eternal. And what brings about that development is Ahava, Or HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the light of Hashem. Let me explain why you can't have a dependency. Maybe because it strikes everybody as what is this?
Because Rabbi Ehrenberg is in a big thrust that we've been learning is this neediness. It's neediness and
what?
now I'm confused. The neediness, but I guess rectified neediness is what he means. So
If in the end, if Hashem and you don't become one thing, then you're still worshiping something else. It's a very big deal. It's a very deep issue. It's not something we can treat completely now. But let's just say that even if I put Hashem as something that, like they did in the Mikdash, here is like you always worship here. What does it mean worship? that I'm the one who needs and you're the one who gives. So there's two. There's two. That's not Hashem's unity. That's not what it means. That's not what Hashem wants in the end. It says, on the way, that's how you get there. You have to learn from me. It's like every teacher. What does the teacher want? That you continue to come to him. If you continue to come to me, so I didn't do my job well. It has to be that I become you. That's what it says. After 40 years, a person omed al dat rabo. He becomes he walks. He stands in the same space as the consciousness of his teacher. It's called omed al dat rabo. That literally means I stand in the space of his consciousness. On his consciousness, I take that place. That's what Hashem wants. He doesn't want, I want you to be like me. I want you to have my consciousness. You're right, you can never have completely my consciousness. And when you have my consciousness, it's all beratzov v'shov. There's always like a run and return in it. But it's not a feeling of this dependency that Christianity wants you to have. That's why 12 steps is so contrary to Yiddishkeit. Because in the end, it leaves you always in the state of achna'ah. Right? You're always submissive. You have to graduate. You have to get to separation, and then you have to get to sweetening.
That's part of it. Well,
It's a process.
I mean, that's really the
Can.
But the process.
So you can't stay there. Even if you're upset. In the beginning, you have to realize, achna'ah, unfortunately, a lot of people get stuck there. They never graduate. They never move on. And truth is that life is always a play between these different stages. That in different things you're in submission, different things you're already in separation, and in some things you're already in sweetening. And Baruch Hashem, a lot of the stuff that we have that we call natural is really already in a sweetened state. A lot of it. Not all of it, but a lot of it. So the fact that we can see, the fact that we can hear, all these things have already, Hashem built them, they're already sweetened. In fact, they're so sweetened that when it comes to, for instance, sight itself. So there's this one Rebbe that when he gave a tish, I don't remember his name, I always forget his name, I don't remember who he was. When he gave a tish, it was in the fourth generation of Chassidus, he gave a tish. So the men would sit around the table, and the women would stand after them. And everybody gave him a bad name. How can you do something like this? How can you speak? And the women are around the table in the back or wherever, but they're around. So he said, his answer was, first of all, even if you have negative thoughts, that's you. If it causes you to think something wrong, that's you, it's not them. And what does it say? Does it say, Ha'aver hara mirot enai? No, it doesn't say, move evil from my eyes. It says, Ha'aver einai mirot ra. Move my eyes, mean, look away from looking at something that's negative. So it's all here. Move your eyes away. If you don't know how to not look, so don't look. But if you know how to look and you've sweetened it, so settle, so you can look. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay. So we got to this because we said that the chokhmah is like a spark of lightning. It's a point. And then it has a lot of potential and you want to develop it. So in the same way, Hashem created many points in the world, and it's love that makes them grow. There's all kinds of potential points in the world. There's points in people, there are points in plants, there's points in ideas, there are points in relationships, and all these things, there's a lot of points. And it's up to us to give them enough love so that they develop properly. So that's what it means, that it begins with chokhmah. The first of the intellectual powers of the soul manifests itself as flashes of insight and lightning consciousness. These instantaneous lightning bolts are in a state of pure potential, in need of development. The word chokhmah permits to spell the words koachma, the power of ma, the potential of nothingness. The word for thought is similar. This also belongs in a footnote. It's like to think about nothingness. Wisdom, like all other faculties of the souls, is a vessel. That which fills the vessel is the light and life force of love hidden within it. So what did we get from from the first thought that Hashem had about the world, we got the potential for love. That's what came out of it. The development of any thought, plan, or talent entails the inner awakening of love, which is needed to jumpstart the process of growth. Love is the flowering of the soul, and without it, all withers and dies away. Okay, so here.
So any talent that you have,
Yeah, go ahead.
any talent, what it is, whether you're a writer, a musician, an artist, and you want to bring something down, or you're inspired to do anything, and you, as always, you get to a point where you're stuck. He's saying that that's where you should access a place
Of love, right.
A love what? A love for what you're doing, for yourself, for Hashem, for... Where does this love directed towards?
Where it's directed, we know. Where does it start, you're asking?
It starts within us, but it needs a direction.
Okay, so the direction that you're going to, like on a child, or on a relationship, or on a business that you're starting, whatever it is, you have to shower it with love. So why is it that you have this love? Where did you get it from? Because that's what he says, Ova Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's the light of Hashem. That's what it means. Meaning, everything starts from a point that needs to be developed, and at the same time, we have that point inside of us as a point of love that needs to be developed also. Love is also like everything else. It also starts as a point. And that point has to develop further. You have to make it grow. The two other, so that's the general idea. Okay, so that it takes things from potential to fruition. Two other major characteristics of love are revealed in the constant comparison to water and Kabbalah. Again, this is love like water, love that's compared to water. What are the two aspects? The one is that it's adhesion, dibuk, devik, imula devik tov. There's a pasuk like that in Mishlei. So say that glue is good. Okay. And it's nature to descend. And it also goes from a high place to a low place.
Fire goes up.
Fire goes down, up, and water comes down. Yuchlu lechabot et ahava. Right. What is a mayim rabim? What is that? Seemingly it's saying the same thing. If we said that there's love like water, so why would you say a lot of water can't put out love? Because that's love like fire. Okay. What is that? What is that referring to? What is love like fire? Where do we see that? Love like fire is when a person is distant. It's what we feel in gaguim. In when you miss something, when you're in exile. The soul feels love like fire for Hashem. Because it's in exile. So when a person has an awakening from below, it's called. An awakening that I awaken, not that Hashem awakes me. If Hashem awakes me, that's love like water. But if for some reason I awaken myself, so that's called love like fire. It ascends. It goes up. It doesn't come down. It's the opposite.
It's from Malchut. Wouldn't it come from the place of Malchut to the soul?
So the explanation in Chassidus is on this week's parsha, the first verse. What does it say? Ele toldot Yitzchak ben Avraham. Avraham olid et Yitzchak. So it's a strange repetition. It says Ele toldot. These are the generations or the offspring of Yitzchak ben Avraham. Yitzchak, the son of Avraham. Avraham olid et Yitzchak. Avraham gave birth to Yitzchak. So first of all, why repeat it twice, and why repeat it backwards each time? Each one is the opposite from the other. One says Yitzchak, the son of Avram. The other one says Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. So these are exactly love like fire and love like water. What really in Chassidus this is described as revealing Hashem, whether you reveal Him from above to below, which that's Avram olid et Yitzchak, that Avram gave birth to Yitzchak, or you reveal Hashem from below to above. That's called Yitzchak ben Avram. What does it mean? It means that there's two ways to reveal Hashem. There's a person who reveals Hashem because he meets a great tzaddik like Avram. When you met Avram, you couldn't help but acknowledge that the world is full of divine, of Hashem. He was overflowing with the presence of Hashem, with love for you. You immediately felt that the light of Hashem is here with you. So it says his special mitzvah was achnasat orchim, was taking in guests. Why? Because that was his best way to overflow, to give from everything that he had, from this incredible sustenance that he had. Really, what was it? Spiritual sustenance, that he felt Hashem's presence so strongly. It was just he had to give it over to somebody else also. How do you give it over? So it's interesting that you don't give it over with a shear. You give it over with giving food. That's why people who, it depends on if you have the time or not, but if you ever came to Rav, to the Baba Sali's home. So usually before you even listen to somebody, what do you need? Why are you here? First of all, eat. Why? Because if I'm going to give you, I have to start from something physical that you feel. You feel it, here it is.
But the Sfardim, they even eat at the shiva.
Seder also. Even Ashkenazim eat sometimes.
Yes.
But there's more an understanding that if I'm going to give you, so it has to, first of all, be something physical, because that you feel. And once you feel that this is a place that people care for you. Hashem, you understand by a tzaddik that it's not him. That this is Hashem's abundance that he's giving you. So then you can feel that, just like they gave me to eat, you can also give me a bracha. You can also bring down something more. By Yitzchak, it was the opposite. It was a feeling of connecting to Hashem because you're in exile, because you're so far from any revelation of Hashem. It's just to show how different they were. It's almost incredible that this could even exist in a father and son. They have to be from such different stock, like completely different aspects. That's how different Chesed is from Gvura. Yitzchak is a Gvura. So what does he feel? He experiences Hashem from being far from Hashem. His feeling is always, Hashem is so far. But it's not the far of about Tshuva Stam. For Yitzchak never did the Nevera. So what is it about? It's about that Hashem is far from here, from this material thing that I'm looking at. I can't see him. Where is he? So it wasn't Yitzchak, his soul was belabored with the fact that it's so far from Hashem. He was looking at the world, and when he saw the world, he said, how can the world not speak out from Hashem's existence, from Hashem's presence, what's going on? And from that comes his gvurot, his esh, his fire, that is love like fire. So he longs for Hashem from a place of longing, that Hashem be revealed in reality. That's why he loved Esav. How could he love Yaakov? Who's the world? Esav. Esav is in the world. Yaakov is Ishtam Yoshev Alim. He's disconnected from the world altogether. So, but Esav is Ishtzayid, Ishsadeh. He knows how to be a world. He's a worldly man.
And the Galut of Mitzrayim starts from Yitzchak.
From that moment, came from Yitzchak. Nachon. It's a very important point. That already by Yitzchak, even though where's the Galus, where's the exile, Yitzchak understands that the exile is built into the world. Avram can't see exile; he doesn't know what that is. For him, Hashem is constantly showering down all the time. He's full of abundance for everybody, and that's what Avram gives out all the time. He reveals Hashem directly. It's called Or Yashal, from above to below. But Yitzchak, he says, where's the reflected light? Why is nothing speaking of Hashem? Meaning, why doesn't anything else reflect this great light that Avram? It's sort of like Yitzchak, maybe the thing that got him was that he saw all the converts that Avram had made, that Sarah had made, and he said, but in the end it doesn't last. It doesn't. So what are we doing? It doesn't. There's no reflected light. They don't get it. When you're there, they're all Hasidim. The moment the conversions didn't last. Avram and Sarah converted many, many non-Jews.
And they didn't know.
But none of them kept the faith. They all, in the end, they went off. Why? Apparently because Avram wasn't there anymore. He left Haran. Some of them came with him. Some of them were here and there and wherever else. But when they lost touch with Avram, they lost touch with this whole teaching. So he says, when you're there, that's like the tzaddik who, when he's there, everybody feels, wow, it's
Like
very...
dependence.
It's the dependence. That's why in the future, who's our father, it says? Yitzchak, not Avram. In the future, you have to be like Yitzchak, which is that from the longing itself comes the light. That it's up to you. It's not up to Hashem to bring down all the time. It's up to you. So, in any case, so that's love like fire. So even the first pasuk of the parsha is about these two types of love. Love is the primary force of attraction in the soul, whereby an individual is drawn to other souls, situations, or objects, each one needed to rectify and complete some aspect of his purpose in the world. Okay. Why do we have glue? What's the glue about? It says it's the power of attraction. It's the power that binds things together. Adhesion, he called it. So why do we have this? Because everything that we connect to in some way is something that we need to fulfill our part in the world. Our parents, our spouse, our children, whatever it is. Every person, whatever, the house that I'm connected to, everything, all my belongings. That's why, like somebody like Yaakov, if he has a vessel that he purchased, he'll go back to go get it. Why? Even if it's like an inconsequential vessel, you can buy another one. You can make another one. He says, no. This is already part of my mission in the world. That's how a tzaddik who's very aware of what his mission in the world feels. Some people will call it today nostalgia. But for him, it's much more than just nostalgia. It's not just that I once used it. I continue to use it. If I don't need it, it's gone. It disappears. By the way, I don't know what the pechinkt anymore. I don't know. But
They said it was the oil which was used
Okay.
to
But
make
one.
David and Melech and
It came from there.
The oil also
That the vessel, maybe not the oil,
but
the
it
vessel.
held the oil.
The oil is the oil that was made by Moshe Rabbeinu, but the vessel maybe was a special vessel.
But it was in there.
In any case, it's to look at. It's saying that everybody that's around me is a vessel for my love. That's what it means that I have adhesion with it. If I don't pour the love into it, or around it, however you want to look at it, then it won't serve my mission. I won't really connect to it. This morning I had a lot of problem with all my electronics. All of them. None of them did and then I thought it was the electronics, so let's go paleo. So I'll move to just a regular phone, like the ones that have like a cord and all that and stuff, old things. So I tried calling my son using that, and still the line kept dropping. So what is that? That I don't have enough love for the phone. It's not serving its purpose.
You took it for granted.
I took it for granted. I got angry at it.
You were depending on it.
Maybe I'm too dependent on it. I'm not the one who's. What?
You're supposed to love your phone.
Love it in the sense you don't love a phone like you love but you have a. It used to be that a lot of a person's vessels were alive. It used to be that he had a donkey, he had this, he had that. And now they're all inanimate. So we think that if it's inanimate, you don't have to have any relation. It's just a thing. You buy, it's like this consumer attitude. But what causes the relationship to exist is at least gratitude. It's gratitude to Hashem that it works. So there has to be something there. You can't have no feelings at all. So that to love it is a little weird. Maybe you need a psychologist. But if you understand the gratitude that it causes me to be able to connect with the real object of my love, so then it serves its purpose.
It's also you can't throw your clothes on the floor. They're
Right,
very
right.
discarding.
Not just that, there's stam. In our house, it's like a balagan. Hashem Rachem. Every once in a while, we walk around and we just put everything on the beds, and then we sleep with them.
That's familiar.
So it's the primary force of attraction in the soul, whereby an individual is drawn to other soul situations or objects, each one needed to rectify and complete some aspect of his purpose in the world. The power of love is sufficient to draw manifold energies together, including at times opposites, to complete a task, run an organization, or pursue the objectives of a cause. This is a big deal. That you need love in order to run an organization. It doesn't sound like that. Most people run it with a lot of dinim, with but you need love for it, and it's an incredible thing. What is it? It's called chen mekach halokcho. That's how Chazal describe this. They say that there is a special grace that something that you bought has in your eyes and it doesn't have in anybody else's eyes. So when you're talking about a business, so you can love the product in a way that nobody else can, none of your workers can. And the way they learn to love it is through you. So obviously there's also all these technical things that you need to do, and some people are good at it and some people are not so good at it. But in the end, if there's no love of the thing that's being produced, then it won't come out the right way. So that's what they call a passion for what you're producing. You have to love the final product. But when you take somebody who's working for you, first of all, they might not even know what the final product looks like. So what is the goal of the leader of the organization? To show how much he loves what's being created. He has to show it. They learn from you. So we said this last time about the first Rav of Kfar Chabad, when he came to the Rebbe, and he told him, a Rav is always from above, never from below. Amara de'atra. Also the same thing is true about a parent. You always have to be above. What do you mean by being above? It doesn't mean that you don't discipline. But the real thing I have to say about this thing that's been created here, my family, is that I love it. I have to show everybody else how good how much I love this product, even if it's not working exactly the way it should. But I'm the one who sees the big picture. If I don't show it love, if I don't show the family in general love, where is everybody in between going to learn? How are they going to learn what to love? They don't understand. They don't see it. So, in that sense, one of the most important things is that Hashem shows His love for the Jewish people. Remember, this is the highest form here. Right here, it's the direct light, the love of the Almighty for Israel. What is that? So the Baal Shem Tov was asked, what should you love more? The Jewish people, another Jew, or Hashem? So he said, there's here somewhere. There's a lot of them. So the Baal Shem Tov answered, the Alter Rebbe also answered, same answer, that you should love the Jewish people more. Why? Because Hashem loves the Jewish people. What is it? Why does Hashem love us? What's the purpose? So that everybody in the world understands this. Because they won't understand it apparently by themselves. They won't get it. When they get it, that Hashem loves the Jewish people, even, a child that comes and says, you never punished somebody else the way you're punishing me.
I don't care about you.
Or somebody else does this and that. But I care about you. So even when I punish you, it's only because I love you. It's only because I care about you. Somebody else said, "Oh, be like this, be like that." But the world doesn't get this yet. Sometimes they don't get it until the end. Some people understand already from everything that's happened to us. There's a map that shows which country is the most important based on coverage in the in the what's it called in UK, what's it called in London?
BBC.
No, one of the what's their major newspaper called?
Oh, the newspaper?
What's the big one in England called?
The Telegraph.
Yeah, probably the Telegram, something, one of those. So you see this crazy world where Eretz Yisrael was just as big as the United States in terms of how much coverage. So even just because of that, you have to understand that if so much that they understand at some level that this is the most important thing. The Jewish people are the most important. Most important in the sense that Hashem loves. This is why is it? Because He's telling you this is the product. If you guys don't get it, you're missing out. This is what's going to give you sustenance, right? What do you build a Lamborghini for? To drive it? No, you buy it. You build it to sell it, and then you get paid for it. The nations don't understand that this is the biggest source of sustenance. They don't get it. If they understood this, there's a very interesting thing that it's beginning to happen externally.
What do you mean this is the most? Which is the this?
The Jewish people.
The Jewish people are the most important sustenance for the non-Jewish
Okay.
people.
That if you uphold us, then you get your real sustenance. The guy who's working in the Lamborghini factory, and he has a labor of love. Why is he doing it? Because he understands, first of all, he's prideful of the product that he's making, because somebody made sure that he understands what a special product this is. But more importantly, he understands that when I make it good, I get a salary. When I don't make it well, I don't get the salary. So what they don't understand yet is if you would support us in what we need to do, it would be easier for us to do for you what we need to do. And if you would support us physically in what we need in order to sustain ourselves physically, then the spiritual reward that you would get, that would be the sustenance. They don't understand that yet.
The ones who are supporting us are also trying to convert us. They have it all permission.
Some of them.
Iran just had a big
Not all of them.
earthquake.
Some of them.
No.
They should have long and healthy lives.
Yeah. Can I
Far, far away.
Okay.
Can I ask you, when you spoke about love and for the thing that you're doing, would it be okay if I asked you, as a teacher of this Torah, how is it that you feel, like if you were to describe to us what it you love, that you can transmit it to us, what is it that, how would you put it?
So I love people to understand things. That's what I love. I love the moment of understanding. It's addictive. It's like when you see somebody understanding something that you think is very has affected you a lot. First of all, you want to share it, and then when you see it happening, then it makes a big deal.
But that's because you love the subject. It starts there. I think it has to start with the
So,
love.
but-
Passionate about the subject, no? And then
But everything that's you see that I talk about all kinds of strange things. Everything that you can understand is interesting in the sense of that moment of joy when you understand it. That also almost doesn't matter. If I would teach you Fourier transforms now, let's say I would study it well enough to remember how you explain it and so on. I'd go into it and explain it, and you'd see it, and you would understand how these phones work.
No, I'll run
Okay?
away.
No, you wouldn't run away. When you understand it, wow, I like all that's in here, all that math. Okay.
But it would be a different kind of
It's a completely different topic.
From Torah and Nefesh understanding.
No, I don't think so. At a certain level, it's all the same. When it comes to Torah, that's something else. So now I also feel that you also connect more to Hashem. Beseder. But in terms of why do you enjoy teaching, okay? So the person who teaches, he gets the joy of the connection through the moment of understanding. And when he sees it, the person understands. When he sees that it affects him, when he sees that they know how to do something with it now. Okay? It's like what was this? That if you give a person a fish, you fed him for a day, but if you teach him how to fish, you fed them for life. So that everybody who teaches has that feeling that I want you to be able to take it with you. Okay.
It's like the light goes on, but you understand it.
And then you're more at home. You're more where you want to be.
is
So
that
that's it.
is that from Ta'anuk, that kind of joy?
It's a tanum. It's a simcha. It's called a simcha.
Simcha, but simcha is more in...
In that sense, right, simcha. That's what we call pnimiut ima pnimiut atik. But the pnimius of joy is a pnimiut of tanug. The same thing. That's what you feel. So the Tanug gets more the person who's teaching. Tanug is pleasure. It's a pleasure.
In the cat.
By the way, there's a lot to be said about that, what it means. Rav Nachman used to say about that when people tell stories you don't get pregnant from. That's what he used to say. Like, nobody ever got pregnant from a story. But from my stories, people get pregnant. That was like you're saying. So what does he want to say? He wants to say that when I bring you an idea and you get it through my story, you're going to become pregnant with it. It's the same thing. It's like, and so obviously there's a lot of pleasure for him.
Change you.
It changes you. So and as a cause of that, he has a lot of pleasure himself. Okay, as a result. So what do we say here? That the love of Hashem for the Jewish people is like Hashem is a businessman who has a project, and he wants us to understand, he wants the world to understand what the product of this world is supposed to be. So he loves the product. He looks at the Jewish people and he loves them. He keeps saying this. If you open up the Tanakh, it says that I don't know how many thousands of times. Ahavti etchem amar Hashem. Ahavti etchem amar Hashem. I love you, and I loved you there, and I loved you here, and I loved you there. And as much as I loved you, it didn't always work. But that's what he's trying to get. Why is he doing this? He's also trying to teach the world, this is the product. This is what you're supposed to become like. So in that sense, to connect with him, it's to connect, what does it mean to connect with the CEO of a company? It's to love what he loves, it's to love the product. You don't connect to him and sit in his office and bother him all day long. What do you do? What?
Connect with ourselves.
So it's to connect with the product. What is the product? Be like Hashem. That he wants a nation to be like him. A holy nation. Right. But again, when it comes to a family, it means that I have to love the product. And only through me will everybody else learn how to, and that's called chen mekach alokho. The beauty, the grace that somebody who purchases something, in this case it's like he's producing it, has for what he's purchasing, for what he's driving at. And only he can get it, nobody else can get it in the beginning. And everybody else learns from him what it is about this product, this special thing that he loves so much.
What is the word mekach?
Mekach is something that you buy.
There is mekach ta'ut.
Okay, that you bought by mistake. That you made a mistake in the judgment.
So mekach is?
Mekach is like a contract. Like mekach minka. Mekach is from lokeach, from somebody who takes.
Purchase contract? Is that what it is?
Yeah, like a purchase contract. So the same thing about causes. A cause is also, like with the Jewish people, it's not exactly a product, it's more like a cause. So if you don't show, if you don't explain, only the person who dreams it up, who wants to produce this, who's an ideologue, who has the cause as his ideal, he's the only one who can really explain it. He's the only one who can really make other people connect to it. That's also true when you go into. We have all kinds of projects that we do either for Rav Ginsburg or somewhere else. So whenever every person has all these projects that he's working on, and a lot of times you go to ask other people to join you or fund you or whatever it is. The only person who can really present the idea and get somebody else sold on it is the person who wants it, who loves it. If you don't love it and you don't want it, well, how are you going to sell it? So you have to, like, salesmen know this. They know that they can't do it because they want to sell. They have to really believe that this project, this product, whatever it is, this is the best thing since sliced bread. It's the best thing in the world. There's nothing like it. So therefore, don't tell me about how others compare to it. I don't care. Why is this the best? Period. Don't tell me about there's other options. I don't want to hear about other. Don't tell me what's wrong with this. It's always to be mil'el, to be above, to look at things with a positive eye. And then I can sell it to somebody else. I can give it over to somebody else. So when you're talking about not selling like a product, you're talking about an objective, a cause. So a person has to be 100% convinced that this is a good thing. This can be seen in religion, politics, families, and community affairs, to mention just a few. And when you can show that love, then people connect. Then they connect to one another also. Okay? On an individual basis, love is the essential force bringing people together and the glue that keeps varied relationships on course. The dissipation of love, if love dissipates, it weakens, will invariably weaken, harm, or break apart those relationships. There's no longer love for the final product, for the cause, for whatever it is. So then everything will break apart. The relationships will break apart. The same thing is true in a family also. You have to continue loving something in order to have glue, not the opposite. You don't love the glue. The glue is the love. Put it another way, that every family has to also have a purpose. You can't just say, Tov. You can say that, but it might not hold. But if you just say, like, Tov, we're together because we're together. I'm talking about between the husband and the wife. We're together because we're together. You can't reach that natural type of life that this is just the way it is. It's not. There's no guarantees. There has to be some kind of purpose that you're aiming for.
What's the purpose in your family?
So it could be a million types of purpose, but whenever the purpose dies out for some reason, find a new one right away. Not to say that there's no love between the parents as it is, between the husband and wife as it is, but why tax that? Why not? And again, it also brings everybody aboard. It's the same thing. You can use purpose in order to bring out the love. So love is the adhesion that we have a common cause.
Wait a minute. Then when they say if your marriage is in bad shape and you have children, to try to save it, that's not supposed to be. That's not.
First of all, most of the marriages that there's not much love between the parents, as long as they don't despise each other. When they despise each other, so nothing will help. But if it's just neutral, children will keep it together, as long as it's neutral. When it becomes that I despise you, I can't stand you, then nothing will help anymore. But to not get into that stage, you have to have something that's... There's a lot of things you need, but one of the things that can help a lot is that there's a common cause, that there's a common purpose. But it's not a guarantee. It's also not a guarantee, because again, like we said, the love between husband and wife is emotional love. It has ups and downs. And even the ups and downs can be so down, so negative, that in the end it breaks apart. There's no guarantees. But you can use these things. They're important. They're part of every family should have an agenda. There's an agenda that keeps us loving each other. It's okay. Today people are afraid of agendas. They're afraid to have a purpose. But it's part of, like for instance, in shlichus. Shlichus is one of the things that on the one hand taxes a relationship a lot. On the other hand, it's what keeps it together. And not only keeps it together, it keeps the whole family together. And when the children see that this was a good thing, so they want to do it also, they decided to continue the same modus.
So who defines the purpose? As a husband and wife to be
Okay, it should be together. Hopefully it's done early enough that it can be done together. Good. Or even, there were a lot of people, like in Chabad for instance, they keep saying this to the young couples. I don't know if everybody does that today. But there used to be, certainly when the Rebbe was still here, that we're getting married to build a Chabad house. Like that's to be like a long arm, the outstretched arm of the Rebbe. That was a common feeling, like that I wouldn't marry somebody who can't take that as their goal. Today it's already, there's all kinds of variations, and maybe sometimes it doesn't even exist. But it's an important factor in keeping things together. Because people can't be ashamed to admit that sometimes they love more, sometimes they love less. It's not the end of the world. And sometimes, if they don't despise each other, then the children could be the thing that keeps it together. That's the project. And it's not such a terrible thing. It's not the end of the world.
The children actually bring out the worst as you go
No,
on.
I don't think so. I think that
But the
people...
differences, the children bring out all the differences.
But the whole thing is that we want to raise them properly. If you understand that raising properly means that you always have to consult each other before deciding what the course of action is. If you decide that that's the way to educate, that's just the way that you bring somebody up. You can't have two different distinct voices, at least until much, much later in life, until they can appreciate you more as people and not as parents. But as long as they're still parents, talking about even age 15, 16, 17, when they still look at you as parents, so there should be a common front, a common direction. So even if you do it just because, and you can't even stand the other person's point of view. You can't stand what your wife wants to do. So you decide that for their benefit, it's better for us to decide on to make one decision. It's not, if we can't decide, don't say anything. Won't say anything. But at least understand it as, at least for that reason, come to some kind of agreement. All the more so that there's a lot of people that will say, because it's so important for me that my children live in a house where there's no disagreements between the parents and so on. So even if my wife says something and I'm, how could you have said that? So he shuts up. He doesn't say a word. Later, at night, when they're alone, we'll talk about it. But right now, certainly I don't do anything but back her.
So for a couple who doesn't have children, it's much harder.
It's much harder. But they find other things to do. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do. So I'm just saying, this is not, again, a guarantee, but but because love works that way, that if you love the product, then everybody in the middle also loves each other. Be careful. Then a lot of times this can be what holds it together. When love flows like water, the ability to communicate can fully be revealed. The capacity to express oneself is in direct proportion to how much love is given or held back. So this is an incredible thing. It's not just, what do you mean to communicate? I was thinking about it last night. I had a certain event with my son. One of them. I am quite.
Not the good one that was being.
So I sat and I thought about it a little. And then I said, what would happen if I came and, strangely enough, the thing I thought about was here. And let's say I came in here and something went wrong and I'd, shout and break something and run out of the house.
You wouldn't do it.
Let's say I would. If I did that. What would be the response?
Your response.
Your response.
Our response.
Or typical
process.
Why? Why wouldn't you say, somebody who acts like that, what am I, out of my mind? What am I doing with him? You're only human. So what are you saying?
You have a bad headache. Or you
Let's say that your response was, don't ever come back.
No.
Let's say your response would be, don't ever come back here. You would say, somebody who acts like this in my house, a madman, I don't need him. Like, go. What could I not do afterwards? What would be very difficult for me to do? It would be very difficult for me to admit that I was wrong. Right? Because like I ran out in anger. You slammed the door, not out of anger, but because there's no room for this here. You'd say, like, there's no room for such behavior. I don't want this. What do parents have to do every day? They have to deal exactly with that. A child is like somebody who doesn't know how to react. So what do? So sometimes they get angry, they break something, they shout, and they run out of the door, never go on, whatever. And then what do you have to do? You have to come and say, but I love you anyway. And if you can say that, then something amazing can happen. That the person can suddenly begin to communicate again and say, after a while, you know what? That was wrong with me. I shouldn't have done that. And he heals also the relationship. But if you can't do that, if you can't love them, even in spite of how they act and what they do, saying in the end that I know that this is just something temporary, it's a crisis, it's whatever. Meaning, in this sense, al kol pshaim techaseh ahava, the love conquers, in this case, all the iniquities, everything, all this, because I love you. So therefore, it doesn't allow the person to communicate. They get stuck inside. And I have to feel that I'm loved in order to be able to tell you that I was wrong. A lot of communication is about that. Chatati aviti pashati.
I sin. To confess. Relationship with Hashem.
We have to confess.
Exactly. Why? Exactly that way. Then why can I confess everything to Hashem? Why can I say chatati avitu pashati, like you say? Because Hashem says I love you unequivocally. That's one of the big deals that's one of the big things that we deal with in Perek B'Avodat Hashem, in rectifying the ego. And the people have this picture that Hashem loves me because A, I'm a really good person. B, I'm the lowest of low, so the only thing that Hashem can do is pity me. Yeah, but it's a type of love, so let's be careful with that big lie. That's what you get rid of in rectifying the ego. That the only reason Hashem loves you is because He loves you. It's not because you did A, B, C, or D, or didn't do E, F, and G. That's the biggest thing that you have to get rid of in the person until he begins to understand that there's nothing that he could do or not do that would take away that love for him. And what do we mean by love? That Hashem brings him into existence, that Hashem wants him to exist.
Is that what they say, that during the time of the first Beit HaMikdash, they allowed themselves Avodah Zarah?
Why?
Because they saw openly Hashem. Then they said, well, Hashem is good, He loves us, and we can. He will.
Well, they had their own challenges. I don't know what the reason is, but their challenges were different from ours. Our challenge is that we make ourselves into the Avodah Zarah. We make our self-image into something that we need to feed and so on.
Our ego.
Our self-image, and the ego, the self-image. Uh-huh. We need to make these things look super duper good in our eyes, because they're really the only reason Hashem keeps us here. Okay? Or the opposite. They have to look really, really, really misken, nebech, because that's the only reason Hashem keeps me here. But even if Hashem would shower on me from now until the end of time, He wouldn't be able to really repay me for everything. That whole thing of it's all reward and punishment. It's how I act. That's why Hashem loves me. That's why I'm in the world. That's what leads everybody astray. You have to get rid of that, and to understand that Hashem's love is unequivocal.
But most people don't understand.
But that's how we have to understand it. Rectifying the ego is to understand that this is the worst excuse for Hashem's love. The worst excuse in the world is my self-image. Good or bad, doesn't matter. That's not why Hashem loves the Jewish people, that's not why He loves me, that has nothing to do with it. And because I need to find some justification in my head, so I build the self-image that I'm a very good person, therefore that's why He loves me. But then if I did something wrong, so I can't admit it, because if I admit it, then it means He doesn't love me anymore, and so on and so forth. Okay.
But our teenagers go after derech because they don't feel that they're worthy of it.
Right. And they're not taught this.
Yeah, I don't know who teaches it really.
So, but you can. It's not such a big deal. We all know this. It's not just such a difficult thing to explain. To explain to the person, look, again, will it lead to what you're saying that he'll go and do whatever he wants because Hashem loves him anyway? No, I don't think so, because there's no connection between the two. Because the person still has a sense of what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done. And that has a lot to do with his role in the world. But to be in the world, not the role, not the mission, just the fact that I'm in the world, that a person has to accept is of no consequence of his own. It's because Hashem wants me to be here. And once I get that through my head, then when I do something wrong, I can come and tell him. Again, same thing with parents. My parents don't love me or don't love me because of how I act. Somebody just told me a few minutes ago about, before I came here, that he wants to do a Shavar Brachos for some Chassan and Kala, who it was found out, or at least they suspect, in the yeshiva that this guy is learning in, that they did something improper before the wedding. So now they don't want to have a Shavar Brachos for them. So somebody wrote me, let's make a Shavar Brachos ourselves for them. So I said, I would be happy to come to such a Shavar Brachos, but on one condition, that we tell them, we also think that it's not right what you did, but we don't give a Shavar Brachos to your actions. We give a Shavar Brachos to you. Okay? It's not your actions that we're looking at and therefore decide. We give them to you because the Jew deserves the Shavar Brachos. Why? Because Hashem said.
So why is it important to tell them that they...
Because the actions are still wrong. Mm-hmm. Even if they're wrong. But you have to understand that the definition of who you are is not your actions. It's true that if you don't do your actions, you miss your mission in the world.
But you also have to rebuke them.
So I said, you say, I understand, but it's not your actions that I'm giving. Your actions are wrong. That's not what should be done. But it doesn't mean that you're thrown on, we don't sit on you for that. It's not the end of your life. Do tshuva and continue on. That's it. What can you do?
So that's like the balance, right? Like that love is there
because of you. Because of the essence, right?
Whatever, but all the dying, like that place of this wasn't okay. So is part of the equation.
And you can only rebuke if there's true love underneath.
Right. Okay? And both have to come through.
Right. And so the communication, and I'm saying communicating, just what do we mean by communicating? Telling each other about what happened at work. That's also communication. But the real communication is to be able to discuss things that are difficult. Not saying the husband and wife have to discuss everything. Because there are certain things that we say that they shouldn't discuss. But
sins.
The things that would cause pain to the other side, that you have to be sensitive to, not to. Even if there's a lot of love that you know that they can handle it, still something that you know will cause pain, don't share. There's no reason to.
With somebody else, yes?
Somebody else, yes. You have to have one friend that you can say everything to.
But also as a sibling is not to a parent.
Right,
to a sibling. Parent, because they'll have sarot from it.
Tsar, not sarot. Okay. Some things, he doesn't know, it doesn't hurt him. But if I did something against you, communication in the sense of I did something to my parents. No, it was open. It wasn't something I did and they don't know about. Something I did. We had some kind of argument. If you feel love, so you can communicate. So you can come and say, even the most difficult thing to communicate in the world, that most people can never say in their lives, which is, I'm sorry I was wrong. That statement, I'm sorry I was wrong, can only be said to somebody that you love, that loves you, that you know loves you. Okay? And I'm not going to throw you out. You slammed the door and you did something. You're still welcome here. You have to change the way you act. But we still love you. Does not. That has to become very clear. The capacity to express oneself in the direct proportion is in direct proportion to how much love is given or held back. In Kabbalah and Chassidut, the free flow of expressions called redemption. Remember we talked about this. It was called you reveal the heart to the mouth. That in the Tanya, in Yigel Kodesh Vav or Zayin, I always get them confused. And Vav is Davidus Hashem. So anyway, maybe it's Zayin. So there he says that it's personal redemption. when you can express yourself. And the inability or blockage of that ability is exile, the inability to express myself. 3 examples of this dynamic are seen in the sin of Adam and Eve, Joseph and his brothers, and the Passover Seder. Okay, so three examples. Adam and Chava and Eitz Hadat, Yosef and his brothers, and finally the Seder. What are these? So, about Adam and Chava, what does it say? The Medrash relates that although Adam and Eve loved each other, their relationship was fraught with petty jealousy and suspicion. Apparently, it has to do with there was a first Eve or something like that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he means. Because of this, Adam failed to properly communicate God's directive. I mean, it's saying that the fact that Chava didn't know exactly what the prohibition was, that the prohibition was only to eat, not to touch, or not to look, or whatever it was because he wasn't able to communicate. And why wasn't he able to communicate? Because he was terse with her. And why was he terse? Because there was some kind of suspicion between them. She felt that she was jealous of all kinds of things, but she felt that he had a relationship before he was with her. And he had some kind of that he's not fully with me.
She was too. I can understand that.
He was flying around. He was flying around.
Lilith? What,
Seven.
Lilith?
Oh, maybe. Who knows? Maybe it's the animals. And the Torah says specifically about something.
Or is that just a woman's nature? She's going to just figure out something.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know exactly what you're saying, but I'm guessing that that's what it's about. I'll check and I'll let you know next week.
I think it's Medrash that he was like flying around, like looking, scouting out the.
I don't know.
He was flying around. He wasn't
Anyway,
actually in
so,
place at the time. Whilst that happened.
He wasn't there, that's for sure. So why wasn't he there? He wasn't with her. That we know for sure.
He wasn't with her when?
When she took from the tree of knowledge. He wasn't there. If he would have been there, he would have said you can't take from it.
Right.
Can't eat. He would have told her, don't listen to the snake, you can touch it, it's not a big deal, but don't eat from it.
But I was told that the Nachash came when they were together, because the Nachash was jealous.
No, he saw them when they were together.
And then?
He came when they were alone, when they were separate.
Why
And
would
added it, well,
Why would they be alone?
why would they be separate, you're saying?
Right.
So that's what he's
Why
saying,
would they be
that there was some kind of argument.
Where was he?
He wasn't there. They had some kind of argument in some sense. He wasn't off in the field working. That's definitely not the case.
Still in Gan Eden.
Okay, and added to it, so because of that, she didn't know exactly what the prohibition was. So she added to it the prohibition not to touch it. As a consequence, the snake pushed Eve against the tree and tempted her by saying that just as no harm came to her as a result of touching the tree, nor harm would come from eating it. This led to the eating from the tree and subsequent exile from the Garden of Eden. So it's very clear that it's a lack of communication. Same thing with Joseph and his brothers. After Joseph relates his dreams to his brothers, the Torah states, and the brothers continued to hate Joseph and could not talk to him peacefully. Lo echlul dabrot tov. They couldn't say anything good to him. Because of their inability to communicate, was born from hatred. It led not only to Joseph's descent into Egypt as a slave, but to their own exile as well. So inability to communicate, again, because there's hatred, there's no love, so there's no communication, and then it ends with exile.
There was no jealousy that Yaakov loved him best.
So they hated him for a lot of reasons, but because of the hatred, they came to not be able to talk. Lo yechlul dabo shalom. They couldn't speak any good words to him, nothing at all.
But so why didn't they do that with the Adam and Eve story? Why
With
was there
who?
a reason?
With who?
Going back to the Adam and Eve story,
Yeah.
What was the reason they couldn't communicate? He didn't communicate.
So here he says because there was some jealousy between them.
But maybe
They
that's
need to
her
see
reason. Maybe she couldn't hear.
But with the brothers, it's also, they hated him, he didn't hate them.
No, I'm still trying to figure out the Adam and Eve.
So you can say that one side has a wrong picture of the other
She's
side.
suspicious or she's jealous.
Maybe.
So that could interfere with the
It's a
communication.
two, it becomes...
But anyway, the worst stuff, general exile, personal exile, national exile, they all come from lack of communication. And that's why when there is communication, when a person can talk and say everything that he feels this unconditional love, then that's redemption. It's exactly it's a simple way of explaining it. It's not that when I'm able to express myself, it's such a feeling of self-fulfillment that's redemption. No, it's the opposite. That if I can communicate properly, so then there's no reason for exile. It becomes the redemption. It's not the self-satisfaction that I get from that moment of speaking, even though it's also connected to that. But the main thing is that exile came about because of an inability to express myself, for whatever reason. The main reason being that I don't feel loved, that I don't feel that I can speak freely here. If a person lives in fear, whatever reason it is, they can't speak. Okay? And that's like how it was in the Soviet Union for a long time. There's probably told the story once. There was a question that was asked after the communist revolution, the Bolshevik revolution. So at the time, you know that all of Russia was in turmoil. Everything was falling apart. And there were militias and gangs everywhere. Everything was by the strength of the sword, everything, for 2 years, 3 years. And maybe even more, until they finally straightened it out. And the group that won were the Bolsheviks. So they used to ask in Russia, like, how did they were one of the smaller groups, why were they able to take all of Russia? They said there were only 20,000 people in the Communist Party at the time. So how were they able to conquer Russia? How did they do this? So certainly there were madmen like Stalin who held the whole city like by himself. He just killed anybody who tried to do anything. But they gave a different reason. They said that these 20,000 people, they had solidarity between them. Okay. And they said, what is it like? They said, when a small boy, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, takes 100 oxen to the slaughterhouse. The oxen are not stupid. They understand something bad's going to happen. But they come. But they follow him. And each one of them alone could turn him into nothing. So why don't they do anything, they ask. Because each one of the oxen is certain that the other 99 are with a boy. They understand, they are certain that if they try to do anything, the other 99 will kill them, they'll gore them to death. So they're certain that there's no way out, so they have to like sheep to the slaughter. They don't get it. They said that's what the Bolsheviks did. They created this reality in which everybody was certain that everybody's against them. That if they tried to do something, it's not just their solidarity was so strong that it looked like there were so many of them. And if you try to do anything, everybody will kill you. So don't try to do anything. So they said they were able to disarm all these much bigger parties than them, because everybody else had a little bit of infighting, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. They were so... that's where ideology comes from, right? Because they were all Marxists. So they had this ideology, we're going to make Russia better because we're going to do this and that and follow all this mishigas from Marx. So that worked. So the same thing, if you feel that you're loved, you can express yourself. If you feel that they're going to kill you if you say a word, so that's it. So that was the worst exile. It wasn't just an exile of Jews there. It was the exile of the whole human spirit. Because everything was built on fear. Everything was built on the sense that the moment that you say something wrong, everybody will kill you. And then how did it fall? It fell exactly the same way, with nothing. With nothing it fell. That somebody one day decided, okay, I'm going to cross from the east side to the west side of Berlin. And nobody shot him, nobody did anything anymore. So obviously it had to kill itself from the inside, right? But there was no real fear there in the first place. It was just they created this atmosphere. And the atmosphere, it extinguishes the human spirit. And so everybody's sure that there's no chance you can ever fight this. But really, you can. If you're able to love. If you bring real love into the picture, and you're able to communicate, so then you begin to set yourself free. Okay, so I need to go. So let's finish the last example. The Haggadah of Passover, the festival of freedom, represents a rectification of communication and celebrates our redemption from the exile of Egypt. The word Haggadah literally means to speak, to say, to tell. On Seder night, generation after generation of Jews have sat together as families and told the story of exile and redemption and its relevance today. No night in the Jewish calendar leaves a stronger impression on children as they lovingly receive the tradition from their elders. I have to say something more about marriage. Sometimes one side does something wrong. They did something wrong. And then the question is, how do you look at it? It's not when somebody else does something wrong. How do you look at it? Do you look at it as, and again, this is all in psychology. It doesn't have to be real. You see what I mean? Do you look at it and say, you did this wrong thing. You must be really troubled or really in pain that it caused you to do something this bad. You must really be frightened of something. Or you can say, what a terrible thing you've done. You've made it so difficult for me, and so on and so forth. What should be the goal? You want this whole situation to end. So what do you come with? If you come with this, you're wrong, you did something wrong, and so on. A person can't express themselves. Certainly they can't admit that they did something wrong. But they can't also alleviate whatever was bothering them that caused them in the first place to act this way. When you come with a feeling of, I understand you, in the sense of, I don't understand you, in the sense maybe I don't know what's wrong, but I understand that something must be terribly bothering you, which caused you to do this. I make a palette, like a magash, I say magash, a tray of love on which you can place whatever is bothering you. And when I come with that, the other side can suddenly express themselves and come and say, you're right. I should have done, and then this was bothering me, and this was bothering me. Because in the end, what do you want? You want to grow out of it. You don't want it to repeat. So by saying, don't do that, it's a terrible thing to do. You placed me in such a difficult situation. They'll place you again there because nothing's been solved. Because whatever it is inside that caused them to place you in that situation hasn't been resolved. It becomes resolved only when you offer this tray on which, here, put whatever thing you need to put out here, put it out. I love you anyway. It's such in that sense, everybody has to be, call it a psychologist, even when it really hurts you, and not give voice to the hurt. It's very difficult, but that's what it means to love. That it conceals, it covers up the negative, covers up in the negative, not so that let's ignore it forever, but to be able to speak about it. That love is an offering, is a backdrop to real communication. That's the idea here. It's not to leave it, not just say, okay, I love you, so I'll forget about it. It's I love you, so we can discuss why you did so and so.
The thing is, it sounds so nice right here in the room, but
you remind yourself, every single time you remind yourself, why am I angry? I'm angry because she did this and this. Why did she do so and so? I don't know why she. I think I know, but you know what? Even if I know, she doesn't know, or he doesn't know. And if we discuss it, then they'll know. That's what it means that it's redemption. I have to be able to discuss it. Again, it's like it's therapy.
Where does that kind of love come from? Like it comes from the rachamim, no? Like
It could be. Sometimes it's the only way to redeem it. That you come in and you say.
That question, like where does that?
It's not always from rachamim. Sometimes it's just because. Okay, if it says in Tanya that rachamim is like the last resort. That if you have pity for somebody that they're in such a terrible place that they have to act this way, that itself can give you enough love for them to be able to hear them out.
But it's not pity, rachamim.
It's like mercy. So rachamim here is like pity. It's like it's more like pity. As I'm sorry for you that you have to act this way.
But I also know my own loneliness and how I blow it. So
Also.
Gymnastics of being a witness. Meaning
But you have to. You just have to remind yourself. It's the hardest thing in the world. Before you speak, it's one of the positive things about modern life is that you're not stuck in the same room most of the time. So it's not like everything that happens immediately has to be discussed. So usually it takes time until you actually get together and start talking. So you use that time to think, how can I bring it in such a way that it won't be an accusation. It'll be an offering of. You can say why do you think this happened? And I accept you anyway. So okay, so I really have to.
Make a conclusion about the Pesach thing.
Yeah. Okay. So let's finish.
I felt like I didn't quite follow.
So,
How is that?
So what do we discuss in Pesach? We say how difficult it all was, how terrible it all was. We're able to relate the whole situation there. It's like Pesach is to open your mouth, to be able to open your mouth. And we allow ourselves to talk about what happened. So on Seder night, generation after generation of Jews have sat together as families and told the story of exile and redemption. It's not that we go and celebrate, oh, it's all so good now. No, we also describe how terrible it was. That ability to describe what was negative, that comes out of the love.
The love of Hashem for us.
Because of Hashem's love for us, it allowed us to express how difficult it was also. Okay, that's the general idea there. Okay, I might have to leave. Of course, this doesn't work.